Welcome to part 1 of our new limited series, A Director's Style. Through this series, we will be examining the style of some of the greatest directors and filmmakers in the last 100 years of cinema. And today, we will be looking into the surrealist dreamer Federico Fellini and its influential style. If you're a fan of cinema, then you probably have heard of Federico Fellini or seen some of his work. He is considered one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, and his influence can still be seen in films today. Fellini had a unique style that was unlike anyone else from this period. His films were known at first for their Italian neorealism traits, but later created more surrealist cinema. He also often incorporated elements of his own life into his films, which gave them an added level of personality. People say he may have been tough to work with, but any great director or manager can produce that effect when they have such high expectations for themselves. Any manager of a business or a film can sometimes be viewed as tough because they want to pull off perfection.
To Federico Fellini in appreciation of one of the screen's master storytellers. Congratulations.
Federico Fellini's beginnings. Federico Fellini was born 102 years ago in Rimini, Italy, to his father Urbano Fellini and his mother Ida Barbiani. When Federico was young, he was introduced to circus and performance. More importantly, movies. After graduating from high school, Fellini enrolled in the University of Rome, where he studied architecture. He only did this to get the approval of his parents. He soon dropped out to pursue his dream of working in the arts. He helped write for comedy radio programs and also worked as an assistant director on various Italian films and eventually made his directing debut. It was a co-directed film titled Luci del Varietà, or Variety Lights, in 1952. Federico's stories reflect his life. Federico Fellini's style is characterized by a number of elements that reflect his life and the Italian culture he grew up in. One of the most distinctive aspects of his fingerprint is how he captures the state of the character's mind.
Marsa? No. Silenzio. State un po' zitti, vogliamo.
Fellini was desperate to bring a piece of reality to film. He would bring in real workers for respective roles when he could. Many of the people who appear in his films are also close acquaintances whom Fellini knew personally. This adds to the feeling that we are seeing a slice of real life, although some of his later films certainly manipulate you. His wife was one of his main muses and starred in a few of his films. Another element that contributes to Fellini's unique style is his heavy involvement on set. Federico was involved in every aspect of the films he made. This was at a time when it was extremely hard to be creative with such limitations on technology. The need to have control of the entire set in order to get the shots you need is understandable. All these elements combine to create a distinct cinematic style that is immediately recognizable as Fellini's. His films offer a window into his own mind and upbringing, filtered through to the eyes of his viewer. In art, personal experience always drives a powerful result. Once he said, All art is autobiographical. The pearl is the oyster's autobiography.
Made the Allied advance dangerous.
World War II and cinema. After World War II, cinema underwent a major shift. In the years following the war, filmmakers were increasingly interested in exploring things that took people away from common life. People wanted to shed the weight of the war and move on. In Italy, where much of the damage from the war was still a daily presence, escapism was not an option. To Fellini, this led him to expanding his neo-realist experiment into the genre that it now is. These neo-realists did things like showing the real war path on camera to create the tone and language of a film. This was a perfect time for Fellini because his style was highly expressive and often included elements of fantasy and surrealism. Fellini's films had a profound impact on cinema and helped to redefine what movies could be. I suppose this is the ideal in most countries after the treacherous Second World War caused reality to seem hopeless.
Buonasera.
La Strada, Nights of Cabiria, La Dolce Vita, 8.5. Federico Fellini's films La Strada, Nights of Cabiria, La Dolce Vita, and 8.5 are some of the most iconic films of all time. Each film is a masterclass in Fellini's unique style of filmmaking, which combines elements of neorealism, comedy, and fantastic surrealism. Fellini's films are all visually stunning, with beautiful cinematography and set design. His use of camera techniques gives his films an added layer of realism, while his use of symbolism and surrealism creates an otherworldly atmosphere. His mise-en-scene is one of a kind, which I would say Baz Luhrmann learned a thing or two from. His characters are complex and nuanced, and his stories are both heartbreaking and humorous. Fellini's influence on cinema can be seen in the work of many contemporary filmmakers. His unique vision has inspired generations of filmmakers to push the boundaries of what is possible on screen. Without Federico, we may not have some of our era's greatest cinematic talent. Federico's lavish framing. In his films, Federico Fellini frequently used lavish framing. This is a technique in which the frame is filled with excess detail and ornamentation. It can be used to create a sense of opulence or to suggest a dreamlike state, as he began to use more frequently during his career. In Fellini's films, it often serves both purposes. The most famous example of lavish framing in a Fellini film is probably the opening sequence of 8.5. The camera pans across an ornate hotel lobby, taking in the gilded details and grandiose architecture, while scaling through the crowd. The shot is all at once luxurious and surreal, setting the tone for the entire film. Federico was a master of tone. After all, the puppeteer must know the controls of all his strings. Fellini also uses lavish framing in more everyday settings, such as cafes and streets. By filling the frames with objects and real people, he creates a sense of bustling Italian life. This technique makes even the most mundane scenes feel alive with a realistic feel, albeit sometimes grandiose. Overall, Federico Fellini's use of lavish framing adds a touch of magic to his films. It transports viewers into his fantastical world where anything seems possible. If the character can feel it, Fellini will do it. If the hero can dream it, Fellini will make sure we see and experience it too.
giù definitivamente.
Federico's style and influence. Federico Fellini was one of the most influential filmmakers of the 20th century. His films are characterized by their use of dreamlike images, themes of desire and disillusionment, and an atmosphere of excess. Fellini began his career as a screenwriter and director in the 1940s. His early films, such as The White Sheik and La Strada, helped to get him more popularity. However, it was with his film 8½ that Fellini truly found his voice as a filmmaker. This film, about a director who is struggling to make a film, is widely considered to be one of the greatest cinematic expressions of all time.
Eccolo, eccolo là! Viene giù!
Fellini's later films, such as Amarcord and Casanova, continued to explore the themes of desire and disillusionment that were so prevalent in his work. However, these films also showed a more playful side to Fellini's filmmaking style. Fellini's influence can be seen in the work of many subsequent filmmakers, including Martin Scorsese, Woody Allen, Quentin Tarantino, and so many more. His unique vision has inspired generations of filmmakers and audiences to see and create cinema. Fellini had this incredibly wonderful fingerprint. When watching any of these films, you can see his evolution as a filmmaker. This director series is exactly about this fingerprint and the undeniable style that becomes prevalent throughout an artist's career. Federico's themes. Federico Fellini's films are often punched up around similar themes. Some of these themes are sexuality, subconscious, reality, dreams, and religion. These themes are in most of his films, if not all of them. These themes were once again picked from his own experience in life and through his path in neorealism. Federico also studied psychologist Carl Jung's work, which most certainly had an effect on his art. After this period, Federico got much more creative with his shot choices. He started to examine the themes of reality and conciseness a lot more. Carl's work on the unconscious, collective mind made Federico's work take a turn into a more surreal landscape, resembling Salvador Dali or Louis Buñuel. This is where he became more in tune with bringing the audience into the character's experience itself, which in itself became his major staple and a style that bleeds into current cinema. Fellini's film La Strada is a classic example of his exploration of love and human relationships. The film tells the story of a young woman named Gelsomina, who is sold by her mother to a traveling circus performer named Zampano. Gelsomina falls in love with Zampano, despite his abusive treatment of her, and things take some wicked turns. Other films like 8½ and Amarcord also deal with similar topics in a unique and visually stunning way, using non-linear storytelling forms and surreal dreams to bring us into the world of the characters. Federico Fellini was a true master of cinema, and his influence can still be felt in filmmaking through the directors he has inspired. Federico had a unique evolution as an artist, and it can be seen through his work over his very long and successful career.
My deepest and more humble thanks. Arrivederci e buona fortuna.
Filmmakers all around the world should embrace the journey they are on. When someone is as passionate and involved as he was on a film, it is bound to come out as magical as his films were. As the man has said himself, there is no end, there is no beginning. There is only the infinite passion of life. you.